Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. This week, we have 4 brand new films to cover. This week on The Movie Wire, Zac Efron goes for one of the biggest beer runs in history, from New York to the Vietnam War in the greatest beer run ever. Something Doesn't Feel Right in sunny Utopia in the sexy mystery thriller Don't Worry, Darling. A kidnapped child, a mysterious neighbor, and the storm of the century in the Netflix original movie Lou. And finally, another Netflix original, I Used to Be Famous. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows, what? A roar and a bursting of flame. The Movie Wire podcast. There it is. You need people like me.
The Wire.
Here's a new mystery thriller from director Olivia Wilde. Alice, played by Florence Pugh, is a 1950s housewife living with her husband Harry, played by Harry Styles, in a utopian experimental community. Alice begins to worry that her husband's glamorous company could be hiding disturbing secrets.
I'm so sorry I forgot to tell you, but you're not feeling very well. And the only way to cure it is if we stay home all day.
Bye.
Bang, bang! Victory is safe and secure. Here you can live the life you deserve. We can all live the life.
Frank has built something truly special. What he's created out here, it's a different way, a better way.
Once unfamiliar faces, strangers one and all, now one brave family. All of you wives, we men, we ask a lot. We ask for strength, a shoulder to cry on, food at home, a house clean, and discretion above all else. And that's very difficult. What is the enemy of progress?
Chaos.
Yeah. Nasty word. Chaos.
The one thing they ask of us is to stay here, where it's safe.
I was here when you got here?
Yeah. You sleep in the bedroom. That's good. Just breathe. Most of my patients have had nightmares.
Violet, where did you meet Bill?
We met on a train
To Boston. You dropped your ticket, and he bent down, picked it up, gave it to you, all right?
Thank you for your loyalty.
What are we doing?
Changing the world.
They're lying about everything.
Keep calm and carry on.
I gave you all of this, Alice!
It's all about control.
Whose world is this? Alice!
I know exactly who you are.
You don't get to take that from me!
Alice, go!
I've been waiting for someone like you, someone to challenge me. Like a good girl.
Now, Don't Worry, Darling has 2 things that stuck with me after the viewing. Number 1, the soundtrack, and number 2, the set design and the beauty that's on screen. The set design and feel are just plain sexy. This movie doesn't hide from the marketing that there is going to be a big reveal and what the intent of where the movie was aiming to go. We just don't know when or where or how it was going to get there, or if the payoff will be worth it, especially since we've seen setups like this before from the Stepford Wives and the Truman Show, and we definitely get the vibes of the comparison between these two movies. The main difference between Don't Worry Darling, the Truman Show, and the Stepford Wives is this movie takes its period feel seriously. Now, with the Truman Show and the Stepford Wives, there was almost a parody to the setting or the characters when it comes to their kind of 50s setting. The most memorable part of this movie is that the fact the film really sucks the audience into this setting. Now, director Olivia Wilde, the cinematography by Matthew Libatique, and the production design by Kathy Byron, they really show off their skills when it comes to creating this world that pulls us in. Now, the environment is stunning to look at, and to complement this is its 50s style music. And the music supervisor Randall Poster and the composer John Powell complement each other extremely well. And when it comes to the score and the selected music, each song seems to just fit, and it sends a message on what's going on in relation to the characters. The score is focused on supporting the characters rather than just trying to be a standalone composition or just background noise that nobody notices. It's very noticeable here, and it's noticeably good. While we're on the topic of music, I do have to mention the sound editing in this film, which I normally don't cover in my reviews, but there is something very off on the sound mixing and editing in this movie. There's a scene in particular where we see Alice crack eggs, and when she cracks them, nothing comes out of the egg. This is where the sound was noticeably bad, where it seemed artificially amplified and off track from some of the actions. There are some noticeable defects in the sound that made it a distraction from the curiosity of some of the scenes. Now, Olivia Wilde's Don't Worry Darling is such a familiar formula that we've seen in movies before, in the setting in the 1950s, and that is due to the fact if we look at the era of the outdated model of how we view the male figure and the women's role, it's the easiest time frame to have an eye-pleasing film with the visuals, but also prove a point about male masculinity and the role of the wife in that day and age. And this is where we give away a little bit of the mystery of where the film is going to go. We've seen it before. We kind of know where it's going to go based on the era and the focus on the male dominance character and the stay-at-home wife. And this is where the movie gets it wrong. It's classified as a mystery, but it's already told the audience in previews, the time it takes place, shown us examples of the dominant male, the obedient wife. We have already pegged what messaging the film is going to try and portray, which leaves us to just waiting for the big reveal at the end. The film has already answered the who, what, when, where, and we're just waiting for the why and the how. And now we are stuck here waiting the 2-hour runtime to find all this out. It's like taking a tour of Niagara Falls and the Grand Canyon that you've already taken. The tour guide has given you all the information that you've already heard. You just want to get to the end to see Niagara Falls or the Grand Canyon. The film was written by Katie Silberman with a story by Carrie and Shane Van Dyke. The mystery thriller genre is new territory for Silberman, whose previous work notably is the 2019 Isn't It Romantic and the intelligently written Booksmart. You can see the struggle in the writing here, where I can almost picture Silberman writing this film, with not knowing really where to go in the in-between moments before the big key moments of the film, or where to take the characters to lead up to it. So what we have are characters that give us what feels like a repetitive dialogue in repetitive situations, and we get to a turning point that the film feels rushed. The feel is like Silberman struggled getting to that point in the script to get to some key points, and she was so relieved that she got to those key points that she treated and rushed key moments in the film as a quick milestone. But the audience will notice this, is a lot of the exciting points of the movie feel rushed, and a lot of the main focus is on the main characters, but we've already seen these characters in these same situations, and we're viewing it again. There's nothing fresh here. The filmmakers didn't know what worked and what didn't work. The cast is one of the only things that keep us intrigued during the questionable dialogue where Florence Pugh and Harry Styles are very easily watchable and are completely believable as couples, as what we seem to be a consistent honeymoon stage for the couple. And this is sexy and appeasing to watch at first, and it tends to overstay its welcome at times to really give us that too good to be true scenario for the characters, which again is another hint that something we knew from the get-go, that something isn't right. The pair, even though terrific on screen, start to become more cliche. Let's talk about the cliche aspects of it. Let's talk about Chris Pine's character, Frank, whom is the creator of this utopia. He, again, is a character that doesn't hint or beat around the bush. He knows there's a mystery, and we can see it in his performance, his body language, and the lines that something isn't right in his community. And that isn't the fault of Chris Pine. Chris Pine delivers his lines with an energy that does make him entertaining and intriguing to watch. It's more like a Disney villain, and more so to the point I wanted more of him on screen. Pine brings an energy as he should, being the leader and creator of this utopia. We really want to follow him. We should feel his energy and leadership in this role, and he nails it. But he doesn't have enough screen time. And to answer the who, what, where, why, and when, he's an essential character to deep dive into these and give us a break from the too much screen time of Florence Pugh, who again just seems to not accomplish a mission of curiosity in her time on screen. We have so many characters that are enjoyable to watch, and learning more about them could have helped this movie in building the mystery back. But instead, our main focus is on Alice and Harry, and we start to get bored with them about halfway through the movie, to the point I really just wanted to go over to the neighbor's house, drop in and say, hey, what's up? And find out what they were up to. By focusing too much on the same thing with Harry and Alice, with the audience already knowing the premise of what's going on and knowing we are just waiting for the big reveal, I just wanted to jump through the screen and whisper in Alice and Harry's ear, we already know something's not right. Get to the damn point. I also wanted to deep dive into the neighborhood. I wanted to know more about Chris Pine's character, Frank. Frank's character could have helped distract the viewer into another direction or build some trust with his charisma, but the film forgets the other characters and is desperate to prove a point through Alice and Harry and is completely misguided. Don't Worry Darling thinks it's smarter than what it really is, forgetting that we have seen this movie before, just done a lot better. It has a repetitive message that predecessors have done before. It gives too much away and adds no mystery for the audience to endure for its 2-hour runtime. The movie runs like opening up the envelope before the start of the game Clue. If you're going to make a mystery film so obvious, the payout must have a climax to pay off and reward the audience. Sadly, Don't Worry Darling does not, and also feels rushed when you really want more and you want it to slow down. But the film gets marks for great performances, the style, music, set design that will at least make your mind escape into a well-designed world like an actual utopia. The movie acts like a vacation if you take away all the characters. It's a fun movie to look at. The film gets the who, what, when, where, and how, but by the end of the movie, we can care less about the why. I'm giving Don't Worry Darling 2 stars. Before we get into the rest of the show, don't forget to check out my reviews for movies that just hit streaming and are available to rent or buy now, including Top Gun Maverick, Bodies, 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 Where the Crawdads Sing, Nope, and Beast. You can find those reviews on my previous episodes, and just a reminder, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit follow or subscribe and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I greatly appreciate it. And make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MovieWireShow. Based on the incredible true story, The Greatest Beer Run Ever, about Chickie Donahue, played by Zac Efron, who leaves New York in 1967 to bring beer to his childhood buddies in the army while they are fighting in Vietnam.
I'm going to Vietnam, and I'm bringing a beer!
Are you ready?
What are we doing?
We're gonna run for our lives.
I'm Chickie Donahue, and I am not supposed to be in Vietnam.
Hey, get your ass out of bed, you lazy bum. Look at you, sleeping your life away.
Look at these scumbags.
Hey, you're embarrassing yourself and you're embarrassing your family.
Do these protesters not know that our soldiers see that on TV? I'd like to go over to Vietnam, track down all the boys in the neighborhood, and give them a beer.
I could do that.
Do what?
Bring him beer.
He's not serious. He's hammered. Look at him.
The man's stone sober. That's his 5th beer, maybe, tops.
I'm going to Vietnam, and I'm bringing a beer! Yeah!
Hey, Chief, no chance you have a ship heading to Vietnam.
1,700 hours.
Tonight? It's not gonna be easy.
But I'm gonna show them that this country is still behind them.
You're gonna get yourself killed over there.
It's like you said, everyone's doing something. I'm doing nothing.
Smuggling beer into a war zone, that's not the smartest thing I've ever heard of. It's certainly not the worst either.
What if you start up here with Collins?
Just came to deliver a sudsy thank you card.
And then, if you're still alive...
You American?
New York. Thanks a lot.
You can hustle down to Dugan.
Ta-da!
Chickie?
I brought you beer.
You shouldn't be here. You think this is funny?
I'm not doing this for laughs. I'm doing it for all you guys.
Come on, time to go.
Is it over?
Yeah, you're dead. You don't get it, do you, chick? This isn't a John Wayne movie where you know the good guys are and you know the bad guys are.
I didn't come all this way just to quit.
Somebody's got to be here to see what's going on. I want the truth told. For them. They're just kids.
You're gonna find out it's a lot harder to get out of a war than it is to get into one.
I'm trying to show them that somebody back home is still behind them.
You got a good heart, Chickie. It's your brains I'm worried about.
Who's this hand job?
It's my next door neighbor. He brought me a beer.
Hi.
Let me just start by saying this has one of the coolest movie posters that I've seen in a long time, that I'm sure we will see a lot of these posters pop up in man caves in the coming years. This incredible true story comes as almost a too far-fetched to be true, but again, we have seen some weirder films based on weird situations from Vietnam, like 1995's Operation Dumbo Drop. Now, with a story and title like The Greatest Beer Run Ever, don't expect an Apocalypse Now, Hamburger Hill, or Platoon kind of film. The Greatest Beer Run plays like a mix of Good Morning Vietnam and hints of Operation Dumbo Drop. It playfully knows and identifies with our Chickie, played by Zac Efron, with a perfect mustache, may I add, and the situation that he is about to put himself in, which is to deliver a duffel bag through Vietnam to the boys of his neighborhood, with the intent to show the boys that the neighborhood is thinking about them and to give them a shine of hope. The Greatest Beer Run Ever perfectly sets up the movie with a cast of characters that you can tell were handled with care and are very likable. You can almost feel like being back in New York in 1967. The cast also includes Bill Murray as the colonel who owns a local pub in town, in which is the center of where all of Chickie's friends hang out. And Murray and the setting gives a glimpse of the relationship they had with his pub along with his friends, even as some of his friends are overseas fighting with Vietnam. It sets up a perfect visual of where these characters have been and where they are, even though they are not present in the scene. We can feel the relationship and love radiate from the characters that are present on screen through them, and it makes what Efron's character Chickie do more believable and realistic. The filmmakers know how to tell this tale. They have to ensure that the audience feels and understands why, and make it heartfelt and believable. They are very successful in having the audience take in these characters with some limited screen time, but strategic dialogue is used between each of the characters to give us a sense of who they are. The film was written by a trio of talent: Brian Hayes Curry from 2018's Green Book, Pete Jones from 2011's Hall Pass, and the legendary comedy writer Peter Farrelly, who's done classics like Dumb and Dumber, There's Something About Mary, Shallow Hal, and Green Book. Farrelly is also at the director's helm in this film. There is a lot of talent in this group to put something together very special with Chickie's story. It has everything on its side when it comes to the talent, and the first half of the movie shows this. The filmmakers and cast shine with the amount of confidence of the story they're about to tell. The problem with the film isn't the cast. The talent is solid, and Efron does a decent job playing the character when, and I'll emphasize this, when he is in his comfort zone, and that is when he's at home in New York, where there isn't a huge amount of range needed in a performance. He just needs to be likable, have some chemistry with the rest of the cast, and to deliver the lines as such. The problem with The Greatest Beer Run is the tone change in the second half of the movie, where we see Chickie in Vietnam. The filmmakers, you can tell they can't find the sweet spot between seriousness, emotion, and comedy. It's almost like the filmmakers were trying to go after a Good Morning Vietnam feel, and it reminded me of that tone in the second half more than it should have. Where Good Morning Vietnam was successful was the balance of emotion, realism, and comedy. This is a unique story from Vietnam, and it should have been treated as a unique story. It tends to be overly confident for its own good. The moment Chickie delivers his first beer, you can sense the awkward tone change when we see Chickie gets mistakenly approved to enter a military base to deliver another beer, and he asks a sergeant to hide him under a blanket to surprise his buddy when he walks in. The scene felt completely out of place and tends to spend most of the next half of the movie trying to find its sweet spot on tone. Now, when it comes to Zac Efron, this is where his range shows to be very limited. There are certain movies his acting style works, and don't get me wrong, he has his moments in this film. But when it comes to the emotional scenes, the scenes of danger, anything other than looking straight ahead without blinking, he struggles with. And in some of the war scenes or emotional moments, he does hold these scenes back from its true potential. But there is enough here in the movie to have Efron shine more than he struggles. So it's not to say he is horrible in this movie, he is not. But he is limited, and it does show his limitations. The scenes involving actual combat and the settings involving war zones gives us a look and sense of danger. The dialogue warns us of the sense of danger that our troops faced, instead of just showing us war scenes. It puts the audience on its toes that an attack can come from anywhere at any time, and that's what our troops had to endure. I think it was a smart decision to have our troops vocalize the threat instead of just showing us, that we have seen in numerous war films before. This is another interesting strategy, is that the filmmakers don't just spoon feed us a lot of war scenes, it vocalizes concerns of vast topics that arose during the Vietnam War, coming from people back home to concerns of the troops to asking the same question that we even ask more so today about our media outlets and the word truth. The Greatest Beer Run's final act leading to the climax starts to find its footing, and that's also due in part to Russell Crowe, who plays character Coates, who is a war reporter. Russell Crowe seems to knock some sense into this movie, and his performance seems to help balance this movie out to where it needs to be. It even helps Efron. It shows that Efron is trying to balance his acting tone to Crowe's. This movie is also a reminder to the audience and viewers on how good Russell Crowe is as an actor. His performance in The Greatest Beer Run Ever is absolutely fantastic, and is up there on one of my lists of his most memorable performances. The Greatest Beer Run Ever has its flaws, tends to take from other war movies of the same tone and style, but the retelling of this incredible story hits more high marks than not. It has a likable cast, some basic but smart writing, and even though it took a bit to find its balance, it eventually got there, and it made the stumbles seem like minor growing pains. And understandably, this film is a tricky thing to balance, but I will give the filmmakers credit for telling the story with heart and respect to the material. It's not going to go down in the books as one of the greatest war movies of all time, but again, it's not trying to be. It knows what it wants to be, and it plays it safe sometimes more than it should, but it's a decent watch for what it is. I'm giving The Greatest Beer Run Ever 3 stars. All right, to all my Seattle listeners, it's time for the Lake Stevens Film Festival, happening on Saturday, October 8th from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. It has a full day of films, from short films, music videos, and the feature film All Sorts, an indie darling which premiered at the Seattle International Film Festival. It will also be followed with a Q&A. This is truly a special event here in the Pacific Northwest, where the Lake Stevens Film Festival brings films and filmmakers from the Pacific Northwest together for a one-day screening and networking event. LSFF was established to cultivate an appreciation for the arts within the Lake Stevens community and showcase diverse viewpoints for both established and emerging creators. The vision from this film festival holds dear to this little film lover's heart. It holds true to the values of filmmaking, diversity in film, inclusion, importance of creation, and respect to the vision of all creators. The festival holds the same values that I stated in the beginning of making this show. This is why I ask you that we support the Lake Stevens Film Festival and take the day to view some incredible talent and some incredible creators that will be down there as well. The event will also have food trucks, beer garden, an award ceremony at the end of the night, and thanks to the Lake Stevens Community Band, they'll be there playing some of our favorite film soundtracks. Day pass tickets range from $15 to $25, but you can use my promo code MovieWire to receive 20% off admission. Just go to www.lakestevensfilmfestival.com to purchase tickets and get more information. I will also put the link in the description of this episode. Don't miss it, Seattle. We'll see you at the movies.
The Cult-Worthy Podcast. Join me, Antonio Palacios, each week as I guide you through a never-ending sea of obscure cinema and cult-worthy gems that deserve a rediscovery. Find me on all listening platforms and at thecultworthy.com. The Cult-Worthy Podcast. Join us.
And cut.
A new Netflix original movie follows Vince, a desperate former pop star who dreams of making a comeback. While during an improvised jam session with an autistic young drummer, Stevie sparks an unexpected friendship between the two musicians.
I was in a band once. But things changed. I'm finally working on my solo album. Check this out. I could play it live for you.
It's not our thing.
It's gonna be a no from us.
I'm trying to practice, man. All right. That was awesome.
Vince is in a famous band, Mum.
You were in Stereo Dream.
What are you here for? I think I'm lost, you know. And now you are found. What do you want more than anything else in this entire world?
I want to go to music school.
Don't need nobody.
Sing a little bit lower next time.
A month ago, I couldn't even finish off a verse, and now with a Tin Men. With my experience and your drumming, it's gonna be banging.
Yes, Vince. It's gonna be banging.
I got us a gig in front of a real audience.
Never had a gig in my entire life. It's different.
You'll be fine. You and me.
Is this for real?
Shut up, man.
What's wrong with you, huh?
Leave him alone!
Oh my God, Stevie.
Don't you ever try and contact Stevie again. It's time to grow up.
This is your time.
He was trying to protect me.
You know he put you in danger.
Stevie was never in it to make a name for himself.
Great to see you again, Vinny.
You were.
So where the musical madness.
I want you to support me on my final tour.
If you have a second shot, then you really have to take it.
I saw how much you meant to him. All he ever wanted was a friend.
I am his friend.
You ready?
Yeah, man. They're calling our name, bro. They're calling our name.
Singing fever to the phone.
I Used to Be Famous is a movie that is so full of cliche situations, a predictable plotline, and so much cheesiness, it's enough to make you feel nauseous, but it's not without a tremendous heart. And this isn't thanks to the incredible humble performances by Ed Skrein, who plays Vince, and Stevie, played by Leo Long. I especially want to call out Leo Long's performance in this film, who absolutely steals the show with his on-screen presence and charisma. This is Long's first motion picture, and I hope we can see more of him, and this is just the start of his career. The film starts off with little to no backstory and just has us connect the dots, which is no problem when it comes to understanding the story, that Vince is a down on his luck, and we discover he, used to be famous. Since there is no real in-depth setup to who he used to be, we lack on the investment with the Vince character. They give subtle hints throughout the movie here and there, what he used to be, but by just having characters convince us of the character, it doesn't really have the same emotional effect as actually experiencing it. The film would have been helped by giving us a little bit of an origin story. We have to view Vince as we see him handle current situations, and Ed Skrein, we see him grow as we continue through the movie, and the writing gives him motions of actions of doing all the right things, but the writing is too brief and subtle to be noticeable. Alongside Skrein's subtle performance of result does not give us the emotional investment as we see in Long's character Stevie. But for clarity, let me say this. This is when each character is on screen as individuals. When we see Stevie and Vince are together, that's when they shine. The chemistry between the two is like watching two brothers that care for each other interact. The writers Eddie Sternberg and Zach Klein know that chemistry is key in this film. If you take out the cliche situations and just focus on the interactions between the two, it works. You want to see the two succeed together and not as individuals. Now the film's centra is about music, and this is how our two main characters connect and relate. This is where the film takes a downgrade. For a film about music, the score is stale at best. It does nothing to help support our case for Stevie and Vince, and I'm not talking about when the two are jamming out. I'm talking about the compositions. There is nothing here to help support the emotional attachment nor the emotional impact with our characters. It tries to act like an independent indie film, but it's not. It's pretty straightforward. Go for the emotions, attack the emotions, and give them all kinds of good feels kind of movie. Except even Hallmark movies have a good score to hit you with to get an emotional reaction from you. It might have been a little bit different if the film wasn't centered around music. This is another way the film misses the mark. It's the lack of focus on what matters in a film like this. If you're going to make a movie about two people that connect over music, then you better be confident in the sound and music in a movie and have a good composition that will help support our main character's dialogue and actions. By the end of the movie, it does have a predictable ending and puts Vince in predictable situations, but the ending did have me smiling by the time the credits rolled, and I'll just leave the climax at that. The film aims for emotion for the 90 minutes out of the 144-minute runtime. I Used to Be Famous suffers from a lack of background on our main characters that would have had me more invested. Where the film succeeds is the amazing performance by Leo Long, and making me feel all warm and fuzzy at the end of the movie. The film is innocent enough, warm-hearted enough, and sweet enough. It may take a majority of the movie to get there, but it eventually does, and it ends up in a cheesy, happy payoff. The film is far from perfect when it comes to movies like this, where it goes for the emotion. More recently from the film Gigi and Nate that had a better emotional connection, because we had more of a backstory. It's a film to watch to put you in a better mood than you were before. It's a decent watch if you have a couple hours to kill. I'm giving I Used to Be Famous 2.5 stars. The new Netflix original Lou stars Allison Janney as Lou, as a conflicting neighbor to Hannah and daughter V, played by Journey Smollett and Ridley Asha Bateman. As a vicious storm rages, V is kidnapped and Hannah teams up with Lou, the mysterious neighbor, to pursue the kidnapper. A journey that tests their limits and exposes shocking secrets from their past.
I wish I could say that some good came from what I did. In truth, I left the world a more dangerous place.
Why you gotta drive so goddamn fast when you know there's a child nearby?
World's not a playground. Teach your kid to look out for herself.
I'm scared. Do you want to sleep with me tonight?
I'm just gonna go flip the breaker. What the hell?
He took my daughter. Hold on. Who did?
I have to track him.
Stay here. Hey, where are you going?
To find my child.
If you slow me down, I will leave you behind.
Give me space to disappear.
Where is he taking her?
I don't know.
Things are escalated.
This isn't just a kidnapping.
What aren't you telling me?
We're running out of time.
We all have a past. We all have secrets.
How do you know all this?
Girl Scouts.
The new movie Lou in the first acts demand your attention with style. It showed mystery, it made a curiosity and a sense of danger to engulf us into what describes to be the thriller during the storm of the century. It builds on this, and as the first act addresses this with a fantastic setting and being in the middle of nowhere. The vibes I was getting from watching the first acts of Lou were the same feelings I got while watching 2019's Crawl, that hinted around the danger without making it a special effects spectacle. It took the audience on a journey of discovery while the storm speeds up to danger. It wanted to get the feelings and the atmosphere just right before we dove into the direct danger. In Lou, we get a crescendo of the storm, mysterious characters that are actually interesting, and great performances from Janney and Smollett. The film was directed by Anna Forrester, who spent most of her film career in the technical background, from a cinematographer to visual effects to the camera department, and the first half of the movie shows this. It is extremely well done. Then something happens that I can't explain. The film transitions from going on a journey to save a little girl to a journey into laziness. It's almost like watching a boxing match and your prize fighter goes down after 2 rounds at the most random time with no explanation other than he was paid to take a fall. That's how Lou pans out. Even Forster's talents are not as shiny as they were in the first half of the movie. The storm comes and our main characters journey through the woods during the storm. But then I had to double take at some point in this film where I noticed nothing in the woods is wet. The storm was gone, our characters seem wet, but nothing else in the film is. This is just one of the details the film misses, and it's a pretty big one. These little details takes away from the sense of dangers from our characters and transitions this movie to a seek and rescue mission without any other danger of the elements. But this was a mistake because at this point moving forward, our characters are not just really interesting anymore. They ran out of their interesting juice. Lou was written by Maggie Cohen and Jack Stanley, who have stuck mainly to TV, and Stanley with nothing on his resume except for this film, Lou. Just like Forrester, it looks like all the effort was put into the first half of the movie, like all of them were running a marathon and had to stop because they were out of breath. The writing does a great job in the beginning of helping to build mystery and suspense, but the second half we are left with next to nothing. Which is a shame because this film had my full attention going into it until the last half. Lou is better than most things you can watch on streaming right now. It's held together by great performances from Allison Janney and Journey Smollett. It's a decent popcorn flick if you don't nitpick all those, those little pesky technicalities. It's a decent watch. I'm giving Lou 2 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. Again, thank you all for listening and thank you all for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram and Twitter and leaving me a review. Until next week, do me a favor and make sure you stay for after the credits to show your respect for those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film. And make sure you support your local movie theaters.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.